Okay, so firstly, hi everyone. Firstly, I'd like to thank the nicest meetup organizers for letting me talk today for the second time already. And today I'd like to talk about Deno and what is Deno, how is it used, and what features does it have. It will be a brief overview of the technology itself. And this is the official website of Deno. And on the first page, it says that Deno is a secure runtime for JavaScript and TypeScript. And as you can see, Deno and Node has a lot of in common. They both are runtimes for JavaScript, but this is not the only thing they both share, because they also share their creator. Randall was the initial creator and designer of Node.js in 2009, and he worked on it for a couple of years, and then he handed it over to someone else. Uh, in his talk from 2018 called 10 Things I Regret About Node.js, uh, he shared his thoughts about what happened to the Node.js across all those years. And it basically he does it in some sorts of negative way. And I think it's a very interesting and insightful talk, because not every day you see a creator bad mouthing basically his creation after 11 years of gaining totally different perspective. And what are the differences between Node and Deno? It's worth to mention that all those differences come from all those regrets Ryan mentions in his talk, and uh, Deno is somewhat like a way to redeem himself, maybe, from all those design mistakes that are still in place in Deno for 11 years. So firstly, Deno is built with TypeScript and Rust. Uh, in comparison, Node is built with JavaScript and C++. And we all, of course, know about TypeScript. And we know that we can't write good JavaScript without TypeScript anymore. So, but about Rust and C++, I don't really know much about those languages. And um, but I've heard a couple of good things about Rust. Firstly, that it is more friendly to the developer. It has a better ecosystem package management than C++. Also, I've heard recently that uh, I, I recently came across an article where a developer advocate, I think from Microsoft, was sharing his thought about Microsoft migrating their infrastructure software from C++ to Rust, basically because all all those pros I've just mentioned, but also because of Rust being more memory safe than C++, and this is really critical for their applications. Another difference is the TypeScript enabled by default, and that comes from the fact that Deno is built with TypeScript. But of course, if you are brave enough, you can develop in Deno in JavaScript. Another thing is that it is in my opinion the most distinctive thing about Deno is that it has no package manager whatsoever. And this difference comes from basically two regrets of Ryan's. Firstly, it is because of the concept of node modules that exist in Node. And I think I don't really have to elaborate why node modules is a pain in the ass. But another thing is uh, is a way that modules are resolved in Node. And from the perspective of a core Node developer, it comes with a really bloated and complicated algorithm for resolving the modules, all modules. And from the perspective of everyday Node developer, it comes with a really maybe a little bit overcomplicated way to resolve modules. Because if we think about that, to use some new module in Node, you have to declare it in a package JSON, you have to download it, you have to store its declaration in yarn log, you have to import it in a module you want to use, and if you use some package in a certain version in n instances of some projects in your local machine, you have to store n copies of the same library. So that idea doesn't really save us disk space. And about how package management and library module management is resolved with Deno, I'll be talking about in a couple of minutes. And another thing about Deno is that it has a tighter security layer than Node. And this is also the thing I'll be talking about in a couple of minutes. And finally, Deno has a rich and modern standard library compared to Node. Because Node in comparison still heavily relies on callbacks within its standard library and doesn't really support newest ECMAScript standards. Okay, so my opinion is that one live coding means more than thousands of slides. So I'll just show you a couple of basic Deno features just by live coding a simple HTTP server. So I go to my terminal, and after you install Deno according to the manual from Deno.land, you can enter Deno, and you are entering a Deno REPL. It is basically the same as a Node REPL environment, so you can use some basic commands like that. And if you exit it in and type Deno help, you see all available commands for Deno, and I'll be talking about them briefly along the way. So let's go to the editor. It's also worth to mention that Deno comes with an official extension for VS Code, and it is important to download and install the official one, because as you can see, there is 6 extensions for Deno available, but only one of them is official. And it is extremely important to install it if you want to have a good experience with developing in Deno, because it introduces a couple of new syntax elements to TypeScript, which isn't really supported by the standard version of TypeScript support in VS Code. So if you see the project itself, it contains only one file I called server.ts, and right now it has only one import statement. And now you can see how Deno resolves modules, and it is done by downloading them via URL. And when I first saw this, I wasn't sure it is the right solution. But when I thought about this deeply and I've read the documentation, I've read some articles, I realized that this resolving modules via URL is the same principle that we use whenever we create some websites using simple HTML, CSS, and JS. In the same way, we obviously use external libraries using scripts and link tags. We apply a URL to the source attribute, and we use the module external modules just like that. So it is the same principle basically, and will it prove itself in battle in the next years? Time will tell. So I've decided to use Oak library, and Oak is a library for developing HTTP servers in Deno, and it is heavily based on Koa library from Node. And if you enter deno.land/x, you will see something like a registry for external modules created by the community. And right now there's 683 external modules available. So for example, we can look for an Oak and see that it is a middleware framework for Deno's HTTP server, including router middleware. And if we enter it, we can see, we can go through source files and read the documentation. And there's already a hype for Deno, as you can probably know, and hype for migrating popular libraries from Node to Deno. So for example, I recently came across my migration of RxJS to Deno, so it is already available. And if you are interested in functional programming, and I know some of you already are, there's already a library for that called Phi. And from my research, it is the most promising for now, the most promising library for functional programming in Deno. And let's come back to the editor. Like you can see right now, my URL is highlighted in red. And the error is the remote module has not been cached locally. And it is because, of course, it isn't cached locally, but Deno doesn't cache external modules within the project directory or workspace or something like that, but it stores it in the one place on your local machine. And from what I know, it is really similar to the way Rust resolves packages, or it is called crates, I think. So for downloading and caching our external module, we can use Deno cache. Okay, we can use Deno cache and name of the file, and Deno will download and cache it on our machine. And if we come back to the editor, we'll see we have no longer the error. And let's continue and create the router instance. An application instance. And create some routes. And we can do that by using HTTP verbs, which create methods like get, which accepts a path. So let's create just a basic root path. And it accepts also a callback that resolves our request. So let's resolve some context. And for example, we can use context, which holds the response, and assign to a body hello world. If you want to create some new some another paths, you can just chain it with another methods like post, get, etc. Then we use the applications middleware to register our routes. And we can start listening and add some config like port. Let's use that one. And if we check the type, the listen method resolves to a promise, so we can use top level await available in Deno to start listening for asynchronous requests. And if we come back to the terminal, and we can use run Deno run to run our server. And it seems that it isn't as simple like that, because we got a permission denied error, and this is related to the thing I was talking about, the tighter security layer, because in comparison in Node, every application, every script is by default has all permissions to, for example, read your system files, write to your system files, or use network, and etc. And with Deno, you have to be explicit what permissions would you have your module or your script to have. So if you run Deno run with help, you can see all available permissions flags that can manipulate your permissions. So for example, if you want to read your script to read your system files, you pass allow read flag. For writing, allow write file. And for our use case, it requires allow net for allowing network access. So let's do just that. Let's pass allow net flag and name of the file. Okay, that might be enough. So let's see localhost 8000 and see that we have a hello world. And that's basically it for the example itself. It wasn't really elaborate, but shows all the important stuff about Deno. And about another useful commands, we have, for example, Deno bundle that allows bundling modules and dependencies into a single file. For example, we can bundle our server.ts into server.js, and it will bundle all the necessary JavaScript into one executable file. Another thing is Deno FMT, which stands for format and allows formatting the code. Interesting fact is that in the early versions of Deno, it came with a built-in prettier, but Deno's creators weren't satisfied with the performance of prettier, and they switched to some Rust library for better and quicker traversing of abstract syntax tree of JavaScript and TypeScript, which allows quicker formatting of files. There's also a linter available, and what's also cool is that Deno comes with its own testing library. Coming back to the presentation for a bit, of course, what is the answer to the most important question? Will Deno replace Node? And my thought about that is, who knows? We didn't really know what future will bring, and I only can tell that despite the fact that Deno came with version 1.0 in May. It isn't really production ready, I think. So if you enter the hype train, you shouldn't really migrate all your applications from Node to Deno just yet, because firstly, not all functionalities are marked as stable yet, and another thing is that Deno isn't really battle tested, and who knows what breaking changes will version 2.0 bring. So in the community, there is basically two teams. There are people who, like I said, entered the hype train and started using Deno, and for example, migrating all important libraries of Node to Deno, which is really admirable. And the other team is the skeptical team, because here I quote, most of the design decisions meant to solve Node.js problems might only introduce more frustrating issues, end quote. And that might be the case, but we just need to wait a bit longer to find out. And what is, in my opinion, the best thing about Deno? It isn't all those features built in tools or the hype, the marketing or anything like that, but it is a Node getting a competitor. Like Bradley Fires said here on Twitter, and I quote, "Competition is a way to bring progress by showing innovation and allowing evolution beyond the initial shock," end quote. And I think this is the good sentence to end this presentation with. And here I gathered some useful links I came across when creating this presentation. And of course, I'll share this presentation afterwards. And thank you.